been lied to about the Wild West? The Sharps rifle wasn't the fastest gun, it wasn't the most common rifle, and it didn't win the West. But it did something far darker. It made marksmen into legends while fueling one of the greatest ecological disasters in American history, the near extinction of the buffalo. This weapon was never the cowboy's tool of survival, but Hollywood turned it into myth. Stay with me, because once you hear the truth, you'll never see the Sharps or the West in quite the same way again. Myth 11. The Sharps was affordable for the average cowboy. You grip the rifle tighter when you see the price tag. It's 1878, and you're a Kansas farmer pulling in maybe $12 a month if the weather holds. You've been eyeing that Sharps rifle in the gun shop window for 3 months. $44 stares back at you. Nearly 4 months of wages before you eat, before you pay rent, before you do anything but dream. The guy next to you just bought a Winchester repeater for $10 and walks out with 15 shots. You're still standing there, doing the arithmetic of survival. The Sharps wasn't expensive because it was fancy. It was expensive because it was perfect. Triple the manufacturing cost of a Springfield muzzleloader. Precision machining, hand-fitted parts. A falling block action so smooth it felt like closing a vault door. During the Civil War, the modified Model 1859 cost $42.50, while a Union private made $11 monthly. Here's what they don't tell you about masterpieces. Most people can't afford them. While Sharps poured money into precision, Winchester flooded markets with good enough repeaters at throwaway prices. The cowboy, the rancher, the drifter, they didn't need perfection. They needed something that went bang and didn't cost a year's salary. The Sharps became a rich man's rifle, wealthy sportsmen with engraved barrels. But the average cowboy, he carried a Winchester and dreamed. And speaking of dreams versus reality, our next myth involves the gun's supposed popularity. Because if it was so legendary, why did so few people actually own one? Myth 10. The Sharps was the most common rifle in the Wild West. You look across the prairie and count the rifles. Most of them aren't Sharps. It's 1865, the Civil War just ended, and Sharps Rifle Manufacturing Company produced exactly 11,000 Model 1859 rifles during the war. Sounds impressive until you realize most never got issued. They sat in armories gathering dust or went straight to elite sharpshooter units like Berdan's sharpshooters, men who could thread a needle at 300 yards. Meanwhile, Winchester, Henry, and Spencer cranked out repeaters by tens of thousands. Cheap, fast, effective. The guns regular soldiers actually carried. The Sharps was a specialist's weapon from the beginning. That falling block breech loading action was revolutionary but also complex. Expensive, time-consuming to manufacture. Christian Sharps designed a rifle for precision, not production. Every Sharps that left the factory was a small miracle of 19th century engineering, but miracles don't scale. The brutal truth. The Sharps was never meant for everyone. Its single-shot design, its 14-pound weight, its price tag, its specialized purpose, everything screamed professional. The Sharps became iconic, not because it was common, but because the men who carried it were uncommon. Billy Dixon, Buffalo Bill Cody, men whose names outlived them. The rifle's rarity made it legendary. You didn't just see a Sharps rifle, you saw a professional with a Sharps rifle. That distinction, that aura of deadly competence is what Hollywood couldn't resist. Ask yourself, if everyone carried one, why are original Sharps rifles worth thousands today, while old Winchesters go for hundreds? Scarcity breeds legend. If these myths have surprised you so far, there are even bigger ones ahead. Don't miss them. Hit subscribe now and keep uncovering the truths Hollywood never told about the Wild West. But if the Sharps was rare, expensive, and specialized. Surely those who wielded it were master marksmen performing impossible feats, right? About that. Myth 9. Billy Dixon's famous shot was a skilled, calculated kill. You lower the rifle. Your hands are shaking because you know the truth. It's June 29th, 1874, Adobe Walls, Texas. You're Billy Dixon, 23 years old, 3 days into a siege by 700 Comanche, Kiowa, and Cheyenne warriors. 3 friends are already dead. Warriors regroup on a bluff almost a mile away, silhouetted against the sky like ghosts. Someone hands you a borrowed Sharps 50 caliber. You raise it, aim, fire. A warrior falls from his horse. The siege breaks. You just made the longest rifle shot in Wild West history, 1,538 yards. Here's what Billy Dixon told anyone who'd listen for the rest of his life. It was a scratch shot, a lucky shot, a Hail Mary with a 50 caliber bullet. When historians finally interviewed Comanche survivors decades later, they revealed the warrior didn't die. He was knocked off his horse, bruised, arm possibly broken, but very much alive. If Dixon's bullet had truly struck center mass at that range with killing force, the man would have been obliterated. The Sharps at 1,000 yards still carried enough energy to penetrate 5 inches of seasoned pine. Instead, the bullet grazed or glanced, a miracle of geometry and chance. But surely, with or without luck, those Sharps rifles came equipped with advanced optics to make long shots easier, right? Not exactly. Myth 8. All Sharps rifles had telescopic sights. You squint through iron sights and realize the 1870s were a lot blurrier than you thought. It's 1876, Montana Plains, and you've got your brand new Sharps rifle. 14 pounds of steel and confidence. You paid extra for the fancy Creedmoor Tang sight, an adjustable ladder of metal extending your sighting radius. It's brilliant engineering. It helps, but it's not a scope. The Sharps rifle's genius wasn't telescopic sights. It was the Tang-mounted rear sight attached to the metal strap behind the breech. This moved the rear sight several inches farther back, increasing distance between front and rear sights. Longer sight radius equals more precise angle calculation equals better accuracy at range. It's geometry, not magic. Some Sharps rifles, mostly military issue during the Civil War, specially ordered for Bourdon's sharpshooters, did receive Malcolm telescopic sights. Long brass tubes with primitive glass lenses. Fragile, expensive, prone to fogging, breaking, and going out of alignment if you sneezed wrong. These weren't crisp, clear optics of modern sniper rifles. They were like looking through a dirty aquarium at a fish you hoped was a buffalo. Telescopic sights in the 1870s were rare because they were terrible. They doubled or tripled the cost of an already expensive rifle. They required constant adjustment and care in dusty, humid, or freezing conditions. Basically everywhere in the American West, they fogged up, cracked, or lost zero. Now about that Big 50 everyone keeps talking about. The legendary cartridge that supposedly defined the Sharps rifle. Funny thing is, the most famous version never existed. Myth 7. The 50 by 140 was the real big 50 of legend. You open the Sharps factory ledger. The 50 by 140 isn't there. It's 1880, and you're at the Sharps factory in Hartford, Connecticut, flipping through production records. Every caliber they ever manufactured is meticulously documented. 40-50, 44-77, 45-70, 45-100, 50-90. You keep searching. Nothing. The 50 by 140, the cartridge that supposedly crowned the Big 50 legend, was never chambered at the factory. Not once. The truth, the 50 by 140 cartridge likely didn't even exist until near the end of the buffalo hunting era. Nobody had the metallurgical capability to consistently draw a brass case that large until the late 1870s or early 1880s. By then, buffalo were nearly extinct, the market was collapsing, and Sharps Rifle Manufacturing Company was a year from closing forever. Could some independent gunsmith have custom chambered a Sharps for a 50 by 140? Maybe. But it would have been a one-off curiosity, not a production gun. The actual Big 50 cartridges were impressive enough. The 5090 and the 5100, these weren't fantasy rounds. They were real, devastating, and widely used. A 5090 Sharps firing a 650 grain bullet at 1,300 feet per second could drop a 1-ton buffalo at 600 yards. That's not legend, that's physics. But at least buffalo hunters exclusively used Sharps rifles, right? Because if you were serious about killing buffalo, you carried a Sharps, or so the story goes. Myth 6. Only Sharps rifles were used for buffalo hunting. You walk through a buffalo hunter's camp and count the rifles. Sharps, yes, but also Springfield, Remington, even the occasional Henry. It's pre-dawn. The fire's dying. Around you, 24 men check their weapons before the hunt. You expect uniformity. The Sharps, the great equalizer, the buffalo slayer. Instead, you see diversity. That guy's got a Springfield trapdoor. The one next to him, Remington rolling block. Another's carrying a heavy barrel rifle you don't even recognize. They're all big bore single-shot rifles chambered in 40, 44, 45, or 50 caliber. They're all buffalo guns, because buffalo gun was never a brand. It was a job description. The Sharps earned its reputation as the favorite among professional buffalo hunters, and that part is true. Its accuracy at long range, its robust falling block action, its availability in powerful calibers made it the gold standard. But favorite doesn't mean only. The Springfield trapdoor, chambered in 4570 government, was wildly popular with both military and civilian hunters. Reliable, powerful, and significantly cheaper than a Sharps. The Remington rolling block competed directly with the Sharps, offering similar power and accuracy with a different action design. Some hunters swore by it. Then there were the wild cards. Custom rifles, modified military surplus, anything that could handle a heavy black powder cartridge and hit a buffalo at 400 yards. And speaking of who killed the buffalo, there's a much bigger, uglier myth about that. One that places all the blame on white hunters with Sharps rifles and none on anyone else. Myth 5. White buffalo hunters, alone, nearly exterminated the buffalo. You open a Frontier Observer's Journal from 1840, 3 decades before the Great Slaughter, and the words chill you. The herds are noticeably diminishing. It's 1855. You're standing on the Great Plains, and the buffalo herds are already shrinking. The great white buffalo hunters haven't arrived yet. The Sharps rifle is still a decade away from its buffalo hunting heyday. The railroads haven't even crossed the Mississippi, but the herds are dying. When the industrial hide market exploded in the 1870s, white hunters with Sharps rifles did pour onto the plains. They were efficient, ruthless. They killed buffalo by the hundreds, by the thousands. Some days, a single hunter might drop over 100 animals. They left mountains of carcasses rotting on the prairie, taking only the hides. But they weren't alone. Plains Indian tribes had been engaged in commercial hide hunting for decades. The Métis people from Canada ran massive, organized buffalo hunts that harvested thousands of animals. Native hunters sold hides to white traders long before the railroad arrived. When the industrial market offered higher prices, they hunted harder, faster, more. The tragedy is that the trade became so profitable for everyone that nobody stopped until it was too late. This isn't about absolving white buffalo hunters of guilt. They were guilty, devastatingly so. The Sharps rifle in their hands became an instrument of near extinction. Now let's talk about something the movies always get spectacularly wrong: the speed of the Sharps rifle. Myth 4. The Sharps could fire rapidly like a repeating rifle. You try to reload the Sharps after your first shot, your hands are already cramping. The barrel is hot. This is going to take a minute. It's 1877, and you're on a buffalo stand, a concealed position downwind of a herd, and you've just fired your first shot. The Sharps rifle's falling block action is elegant, but it's not fast. You lower the trigger guard lever, which drops the breech block and ejects the spent cartridge. You fish a fresh round from your belt. Each one weighs as much as a small rock. You slide it into the chamber. You close the action, you aim, you fire. 10 seconds if you're good, maybe 8 if you're a professional. A skilled sharps shooter could manage up to 10 accurate shots per minute. Impressive compared to a muzzleloader. But a Winchester 1873 could fire 15 shots in under 30 seconds. The Sharps wasn't designed for speed. It was designed for accuracy. That single-shot falling block action created a rock-solid lockup between cartridge and barrel. No wobble, no flex. Every ounce of energy from the powder charge went into pushing the bullet straight and true. This is why buffalo hunters preferred it for stand hunting, carefully killing animals one at a time from long range without spooking the herd. Speed didn't matter, precision did. Here's what they don't show in movies. After 25 shots, your Sharps rifle is too hot to hold. George Reihard, one of the most successful buffalo hunters, carried 2 Big 50 Sharps rifles specifically because of this. After killing about 25 buffalo, the barrel would overheat, causing bullets to wobble mid-flight. But surely the Sharps was the most powerful rifle of its era, right? The biggest, baddest gun on the frontier? Well, Myth III. The Sharps was more powerful than all other rifles of its era. You set it down next to a Springfield trap door. Same caliber, same bullet, same powder charge. It's 1874, and you're at a shooting competition in Omaha, Nebraska. Around you, the best rifles of the era are lined up like contestants in a pageant. The Sharps, the Remington rolling block, the Springfield trapdoor, the Ballard. Each one a masterpiece of 19th century engineering. You expect the Sharps to dominate. It doesn't. The Sharps 4570 government fired a 405-grain bullet propelled by 70 grains of black powder. Muzzle energy, around 1,600 foot-pounds. Effective range, 600 yards in skilled hands. Devastating on buffalo, elk, and anything else on the North American continent. But the Springfield trapdoor? Same cartridge, same ballistics, same killing power, and it cost half as much. The Remington rolling block competed directly with the Sharps, chambered in everything from 4070 to 5090. Its action was simpler, arguably stronger, and just as accurate in the hands of a good shooter. The real distinction of the Sharps wasn't raw power, it was the package, the combination of accuracy, reliability, and the ability to handle the heaviest cartridges available. The Sharps could chamber the 45-110 or 5100 cartridges so powerful they could punch through a buffalo's shoulder blade and keep going. Most toggle-link Winchesters couldn't handle that level of pressure without risking mechanical failure. Now, here's a myth that even firearms historians sometimes get wrong, and it involves the man whose name is on the rifle. Myth 2. Christian Sharps ran the Sharps Rifle Company throughout its existence. You check the company records. In 1855, Christian Sharps walks out the door and never comes back. It's 1848 when Christian Sharps, a young gunsmith with a revolutionary idea, patents a breech-loading rifle with a falling block action. It's brilliant. It's innovative. It's everything a muzzle loader isn't. Fast, reliable, safe. The Sharps Rifle Manufacturing Company is born. By 1851, the company is producing military contracts. By 1853, the design is being refined and improved. By 1855, Christian Sharps is gone. He left, packed his tools, took his patents, and started his own company, C. Sharps and Company, in Philadelphia. He wanted control. He wanted royalties. He wanted to build rifles his way, without committee oversight or military contracts dictating design. While Christian Sharps was gone, a man named Richard S. Lawrence became the chief armorer. And it was Lawrence, not Sharps, who developed the improvements that made the Sharps rifle famous. The 1874 model, the one everyone thinks of when they hear Sharps rifle, the one used in the buffalo hunts, the one immortalized in films. Christian Sharps had nothing to do with it. Lawrence refined the action. Lawrence adapted it for metallic cartridges. Lawrence oversaw production during the Civil War and the buffalo hunting era. Lawrence turned the Sharps rifle from a good idea into a legend. Christian Sharps, meanwhile, ran his own company until 1874, producing firearms that are now footnotes in history. He died in 1874, the same year his namesake rifle reached its peak of fame. And now, the biggest myth of all, the lie that encapsulates every Western movie, every frontier story, every piece of nostalgic Americana. The myth that the Sharps rifle, this rifle, won the West. Myth 1. The Sharps rifle won the West. You stand on the ruins of adobe walls, the bones of buffalo bleaching in the sun, and realize this rifle didn't win anything. It just killed things. It's 1885. The buffalo are gone. The Plains Indian tribes have been forced onto reservations. The railroads have carved steel lines across the continent. Towns are springing up like weeds. The frontier, whatever that even means, is won. And the Sharps Rifle Manufacturing Company is dead. They closed the doors in 1881, went bankrupt, sold off their equipment. The single-shot rifle that supposedly conquered a continent couldn't even survive in the market it helped create. Because by the 1880s, the world had moved on. Repeating rifles, Winchester's Marlin's eventually bolt-actions, had made the Sharps obsolete. Here's what the Sharps rifle actually did. It facilitated the near extinction of the buffalo. That's its legacy. Not heroic, not noble, not winning anything. 30 million buffalo, reduced to a few hundred in less than 2 decades. And the Sharps rifle, accurate, powerful, reliable, was the primary tool of that slaughter. Buffalo hunters used Sharps rifles to kill animals by the hundreds, day after day, leaving mountains of carcasses rotting on the plains. Why? Because buffalo hides were worth money. Because the government wanted the buffalo gone to force Native American tribes into submission. Because industrial capitalism found a resource and extracted it until nothing remained. The winning of the West wasn't a single event. It wasn't accomplished by a single rifle. It was a complex, brutal process involving military campaigns, disease, treaties, railroad construction, agricultural expansion, and yes, firearms technology. But no gun won the West. Guns were tools. People made choices. The Sharps rifle's greatest achievement was facilitating the destruction of the Plains Indians' primary food source. The Sharps rifle wasn't the cowboy's everyday gun, and it didn't win the West. It was rare, costly, and devastating. A tool that helped drive the buffalo to the edge of extinction. Legends made it iconic, but history tells a harder truth. If you want more myth-busting stories that cut through Hollywood fantasy, hit subscribe, share this video, and join us as we uncover the real Wild West.